So, when I was thinking about what we're going to talk about today, because I usually just wait till God says that's what we're talking about. In the midst of our lives at home, we had a mess this weekend. If you're on Facebook with us, you know that Friday evening our fridge went out. And when that happens, you do what you always do. You go grab the coolers and you get some ice and you put everything in there, right? And you go to brother-in-law's house around the corner and you grab their coolers. And you go to Harmon's and you get dry ice. And no matter what you do and how good you are at that, your kitchen is a mess, right? Because something's going in the trash that's not going to make it. And you suddenly realize what's important in your fridge, right? But you don't cook that weekend because you can't get around the coolers in the kitchen because it's a mess, right? So we're going to talk today about what a mess, right? Well, I'm going to talk about first another family. I want you to imagine this for a moment, that there's, you know, a couple and they have some children and they're brick makers. And the way that you make bricks in Egypt is you tromp in the mud, very clay-based mud, right? And if you're not being punished in a special way, you get straw to add to that because that strengthens the brick and it's a binder for that brick, right? There were occasions in which they were being oppressed even more heavily and Pharaoh said, take the straw away, which made their work even harder, right? But in any case, this is not a pleasant task. Not only is it not a pleasant task, but they're forced to do it because they're slaves by this point in Egypt, okay? So this family who works 7 days a week from sunup to sundown, or possibly longer, making bricks, suddenly gets the word. You're free. And it's time to leave. Because once you're freed, you don't want to hang out with your captors anymore. And you take advantage of that moment, right, to go, right? So when marriage became legal in Utah, we all rushed down to the courthouse, right? We have a moment. We seized that moment, many of us, right? So we know what it's like to seize that moment, but sometimes seizing that moment can be chaotic. So here's a group of people. We have 600,000 men, not counting women and children. The estimates are for anywhere from 1 million to 2 million people. So imagine a group at least as big as the entire Salt Lake Valley, picking up and moving all of a sudden. So it's chaos. So this family, in the midst of this, rushes home and grabs the kids and piles everything they can on whatever they've got, a cart, a donkey, whatever they can steal, right? Because God's already said, start asking for gold, you're going to plunder Egypt, right? And the Egyptians at this point are willing to give some of that up because they've gone through this series of plagues. They've cried uncle, they're like, just go. Take whatever you want and go. So they pile their belongings on there and they head out. It takes a while to move that many people. You've been stuck in traffic, right? It takes a while to move a lot of people in one direction. It is a mess. And yet, in the midst of this mess, right? Now, how many of you guys have ever packed to move? Yeah, everybody's handed more than once, right? You get to that last box, and you're like, I just don't care. Put it in there. I don't care if it's wrapped. I don't care if it matches. Just put it in there. I have a friend who has a nickname for that box, but we can't talk about that right? So imagine if everything is like that. You've got this 24-hour period at least to throw it all together and get out of Dodge. It's a mess. And yet you're rejoicing because you're free. You're rejoicing because it's done. It's over. And you have somewhere that's promised to go to. So there are two things I want us to talk about that happen in the midst of mess. Okay? Two things that can make it joyful or not. And the first is attitude. Is our attitude about the mess. And the second is our willingness to turn around how we think about mess. Okay? So picking up everything they've got, and you know they've got to be leaving some stuff behind, even though they're slaves, right? They've got some stuff. And they're going to have to leave some of that behind. This weekend, as we were leaving stuff behind in the trash and doing all this stuff, we could have had a very stressful weekend. Where, you know, it gets hot and you get grouchy and about this, but instead, we did a lot of laughing. We have the cleanest non-working fridge in town right now. You know, because we made that choice. We made the choice to, in the midst of that mess, not let ourselves become a mess. We saw the circumstance for what it was, which is outside of us, not in here. So it can be a mess out there, but it doesn't have to mess with us. It doesn't have to mess with our relationship. It doesn't have to mess with us. Right? So our attitude about the mess is sometimes really important. We talk about sometimes, you know a person's true character, not when things are going well, but when they're faced with adversity. When they're faced with those messes that life throws at them. That's when you find out who you really are and who other people really are. Because everybody can be cool when things are going well, right? You get money in the bank, and the car works, and the fridge works, and the TV works, and you got a job, and you got school, or whatever you've got in your life, right? When all those things are in order, it's easy to maintain a positive attitude. But what happens when the car breaks down, and the fridge goes out, and you get laid off? What happens when those things occur in our lives? Do we suddenly break down in character because of those external circumstances? Or do we see them for what they are, and they can be a bear? And it doesn't mean you have to be happy about it, don't get me wrong, okay? But how do you react to that? Do you react to that as, this is a problem out here, and we'll fix it, and we don't know how, but it'll happen, but it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change who I am as a person, or my relationships and those kinds of things, right? Sometimes in the midst of the mess, we learn who we are.